Hey guys, my name's Adam Meeks. I'm the video producer here at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I'll be your sort of host and moderator for tonight's event. I will shortly introduce Wynton Marsalis to sort of take things over for a little while, and then once we run through some conversations with him and a host of other friends of Wynton's who will be joining us tonight, then we'll see if we can get to some questions from you all towards the end of the hour. In addition to Wynton tonight, we will be hearing from Jon Batiste, Joey Alexander, Peter Martin, Terence Blanchard, Clarence Penn, and Antoine Dry. I will do some sort of housekeeping things in a little while to instruct you guys on how to ask a question. If you have something you'd like to ask of anybody, any of the names that I just listed. And until then, Wynton, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. I want to thank you all very much for tuning in. Tonight, I'm going to talk about my father in the time when we're surrounded by a lot of death, people dying in our families, people close to us. I just had a conversation with my father on a Thursday night. He passed away on Wednesday. So the Thursday before that, I was talking to him and joking with him. I'm always playing with him. And I was joking about stay away from COVID. There's so many people in New Orleans with it. I said, I hope you weren't out parading him during Mardi Gras season. And I said, man, I don't think it's your time for COVID. And he said, man, nobody ever knows when it's their time. I don't determine the time. And he said, if it does happen, it's not any more tragic because it's you than it is for anybody else. And that was one of the main themes that he always tried to teach all of us that you're going to hear from tonight, which is that everybody is interwoven. And there's something that hurts one person hurts everybody. You know, for me, the loss and the grief is so deep, it doesn't express itself in kind of crying. It's just deep. I just stay up at night and I think about him, how sweet he was as a person and how his aspirations were always for humanity. And he always had the largest thought. I want to thank everybody that wrote me. I got so many phone calls and so many emails and nice things from people really all over the world that love my father. So I'm just so humbled and grateful. I'm going to try to get back to everybody. And I'm gonna go to his theme. Just many people are dealing with this. Many people are dealing with this. And he was a person who he embraced the higher part of our humanity all the time. I'll tell you all one funny story about him. Just in our neighborhood, we lived in Kenner, Louisiana when I was growing up. And we lived between the railroad tracks and the Mississippi River. And even in that neighborhood, we always had the raggediest cars. And my father would go out and get the raggediest car he could find. And when that car broke down, he would take it to the junkyard and take the place off and get another one from the junkyard. And I think when people pass away, in our tradition, the old folks used to say that people sit with them. And sometimes when people sit, they sit on your porch or something, they don't really even have to say nothing. They just sit there and just their feeling transforms you. Well, in this case, I mean, in the condition when I couldn't even get down to my father's funeral or anything, but we have a chance to sit with some friends tonight and we're going to talk and tell stories. On the Thursday night that I talked with my father, for some reason, I decided to go through his whole kind of history that I knew, clubs that we had been in, funny stuff that happened, sweet things, bad things. And he was very lucid. Even he corrected one of the bass players. I told him, Julius Farmer played bass with y'all in the 70s. He said, man, that wasn't Julius Farmer. That was a cat named Trees. So he was on top of everything. And I did not know that he would be going to the hospital on Saturday and that he wouldn't come out of the hospital when he got there. But at the end of that conversation, he said, man, why are you talking about all this old shit? I said, man, you know, it's good to remember stuff. He said, yeah, man, memories. So that's kind of the last lucid conversation I had with him. I'm going to turn it over now to one of his students, and a piano player lived in Lincoln Manor right next to Kenner. It's unbelievable he came out of there. Mr. Jonathan Batiste is going to tell us a few things about my father, Ellis Marsalis. Hey, Bat.
What's happening?
What's happening? Thank you, bro.
Man, my condolences. And, you know, this is how we sit around in this quarantine time. So I'm glad that we could do this and pay homage, you know?
Yes, sir.
It's very, very evident to me, and it becomes more and more evident as the days go on, that it's hard to put a meaning to someone's life in a succinct way. I think about how much his values had become something that I adopted before I even understood that it had came from him. The origin was him and a few of the other elders in New Orleans. And they created something for us before we were even thought of. And to come into that and to take the mantle of that and take that into the next generation and be a part of something that's so important, and something that took so much sacrifice and study, diligence, the idea of learning the craft, making it your own, passing it on to so many young musicians over the years, being the patriarch to a musical family that took this music around the world, to deliver it with such class and humility, and to be humble about something that you don't really often get a payoff for. To be humble about something that's a true achievement, whether the majority of people know it or not. And I just remember encountering that level of seriousness and not really understanding, and still trying to understand what a life like that, what happens in the wake of a life like that. And conceptualizing that in my own way so that I can deepen my seriousness and commitment to everything that those elders have given us. I just remember the first time we met, and I was 13 years old. And at this point, he was in our community, in the jazz community, in the community of musical education and New Orleans cultural community, and in the world, he had become somewhat of a mythological figure. I'd heard about him before I actually heard him play. And I knew, as I was getting serious about piano, that I had to address what he had put on the table. He was playing at Snug Harbor every Friday night for 30 years. I must have been 31 years. And I'd heard about that gig, so I went down there. My parents brought me down there. And when I got there, now this is something that I think also shows you the level of commitment he had to tutelage and understanding the craft, but also learning and being aware of what's coming behind him. When I went to introduce myself to him, he had already heard about me and maybe had heard me play already and was telling me things about my playing and invited me to the house. So when I went to the house, I thought that kind of encouraging spirit, the tenor of his encouragements would continue, but it didn't go that way. So I sat at the piano and I started to play. And before I could finish the melody, he cut me off. He said, Jonathan, do you know the words to this song? It was Autumn Leaves. And he was like, do you know the words to this song? And I was like, when you're young, you try to hide your ignorance versus just admitting that you don't know. So I said something that was kind of non-committal, like, well, I heard him before. And then he was like, well, you need to hear him again. I could go on. No, I don't want to take up too much of the time. But there's so many stories like that over the years from that point of and not just seriousness, laughter and camaraderie, and also talk about things in both a colloquial manner and also in a manner of someone who is an elder who's trying to prepare you for the range of things that you're going to deal with as a musician out here. He was talking to me one day. I remember I went back to the house. This many years after that, and he was talking about how to do your taxes and how important it is to learn how to do your taxes. And in the tradition of musicians who didn't figure that out, and why that's just as important as tightening up your instrument. So I mean, just to have somebody who created that amount of just to have created such a wealth of tradition and knowledge built on something so meaningful that we can grab onto. You know, you can't quantify it. We just got to keep thinking about it as years pass, and just telling stories and meditating on conversations and lessons that we garnered from being around those type of people. And hopefully one day we can be that in our communities, in the space that we inhabit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to say, you know how much he loved you. You know, my daddy, whenever he hears somebody else who could play, he called me. Man, I heard a little cat from somebody, man, from Lincoln, man, Jon Batiste, man. You know, his parents was playing. I knew about your parents, of course. Man, that boy can play. He just got that natural ability. So first I'm thank you, J-Bat, for just stick around if you can, because you know we're gonna throw it back and forth. We're not really in the order. But I know it's past Joey's bedtime, but we're gonna let him wait a little bit because I'm gonna throw it over to one of our we the elder statesmen on this particular call. My brother, who could always play. I mean, he was just always so soulful and serious. And I want to say, in introducing him, Wallace Roney passed away too. Mm. And the three of us are like the same age. Mm. We came up here at the same time. We've known each other for a long time. And I never think about Wallace. I think about that time when we were 18 and 19. And the gentleman I'm introducing, we went to school together. We were in high school. We had 8th grade honor band together. Mm. And we've known each other for many years. I want to thank him for being on Terence Blanchard. Thank you, T.
Oh, man, thank you. First of all, my condolences, obviously.
Yes,
you know, there's so many things, man, I could say about Ellis, a lot of funny stories. But for me, I think one of the most important things is to really emphasize that, to me, Ellis was the embodiment of what it meant to be selfless. You know, this is a man who could have had a career, could have went on to do a lot of other things to further his career, but decided to come back to New Orleans and really educate us. You know, one of the things I think about a lot is that physically he had 6 children, but spiritually, man, he had children all over the world. You know, one of the things that used to amaze me about Ellis, it took me a while to get accustomed to it because he was so approachable that I didn't think he was real. You know, just thought some other shit would. But then I said, no, man, that's just the way he is. He's just a cool dude, and you could talk to him about anything. One of the biggest lessons that Ellis has ever given me throughout my life is the fact that whenever I encountered him, he was studying something. He was trying to learn something. He didn't quit. He didn't stand and say, no, I'm just going to do this and just be this for the rest of my days. No, he always worked at his craft, always worked at bettering himself as a person. And I'll never forget, man, just recently, you know, I had a production here in New Orleans of an opera I'd done. And when I got to the theater, I walked in and I saw Ellis, man, and you would have thought my last name was Marsalis. His chest was just as big as anybody else's, man. And he was there just as proud. And I had to invite him over to the house afterwards. So him and Roger, man, they sat up in my house night long, man. I had to throw him out at the end, bro. They were having such a good time.
Okay, you talking about, let me say you talking about Roger Dickerson, who was a great composer and my father's oldest living friend. They were friends in high school. So Roger Dickerson also taught Terence, gave Terence a few composition lessons, right? When you were in high school, T?
Oh, yeah, man. But look, if it wasn't for those 2 guys, I wouldn't be here. It's so interesting, bro. People used to ask me all the time, journalists ask me, who are your 2 greatest influences on opera? And I said, well, my 2 earliest were Clifford Brown and Miles Davis. And you know where I got that from? From the 2 records that when I was at NOCA, I came into NOCA talking about these other trumpeters, and Ellis said, son, you need to go home and listen to this. And he pulled out these records. He pulled out 4 More Live, and he pulled out Brown and Roach Incorporated. He said, listen, take these on. And look, bro, he must have played them about 100,000 times because they had tape around the edge. He said, man, just take these home. And look, I still got them around here someplace. I never brought them back. Once I took them home, that was the beginning of a whole nother life for me, man. You know, and I often reflect on the fact that there's much that I could have ever done to repay them back. So the best thing that I could do and the best thing that we can do is to pay it forward. You know, it's one of the reasons why I love to teach, because all of my lessons, man, when I'm working with students now, come from the experiences that I had with Ellis. When Ellis would be up there, he would sit at the piano and play for us until we got it together. He said, listen, just go, go ahead. He would play, and Wynton knows this is true. Sometimes he would play and fuss at the piano. And to keep playing the changes while he's asleep at the piano, the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Sometimes we walk over to him and kind of look up and say, damn, man, he's asleep. Oh my God. You know what I mean? But hey, you know, those guys, they were committed to me. One of the, and I feel like J-Bat, man, I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the reasons my career has gone the way that it's gone is because celebrity was never the issue. Never, ever. The issue was always a passion for creativity, you know, and that's the thing that I feel extremely blessed, because my life went down the path of experiencing Ellis, you know. It's one of the reasons why the other day when I felt like I was shot in the chest with news, you know, I paid a little to him by playing 12-zit on the piano, because, you know, Wynton blowing the bell off the trumpet when we were in high school. And when I came along with just a little bit of proficiency on the piano, Ellis got his eyes got big. He said, finally, I'm gonna have a piano student. He tried to make me a piano player with that. Nah, bro, I just play the horn, man. So I had to go back and play 12-zit on the piano for him, because he just meant a lot to so many people. You know, he's gonna be missed, but he will never be forgotten, dude, because those lessons, those life lessons, are the things that are still carrying us forward.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I also want to say, look, Terence could play the trumpet, but he could play the piano too now. You remember I used to play the Haydn trumpet concerto, and Terence would play the piano part.
Oh, I never.
Man, come on. You know you can play. I never
get you getting ready to go to, I think, Tanglewood or something like that.
You can play, man. Right. You always can play.
But then all of a sudden you say, hey, man, T, I need to work on these changes. You think you can play these changes for me?
T can play with it. Whatever he touch, he can play. So we go. Thank you, T.
Sure.
We gonna come back around. I know it's time for Joey to go to bed, but you know what?
I think I sleep at 1 or 2.
You know, you okay? Well, look, we're good. We're gonna keep you up a little while, because we're gonna go over the gentleman that I first met in St. Louis. I don't know, he was 14 or 15 with his friend Jeremy Davenport as a trumpet player. I was playing with the St. Louis Symphony, and he said, man, I want you to hear my boy play. He was playing. I said, wow, you can play. How old are you? He was 14 or 15. He said, man, you got to hear my boy play, Pete. And he sat down and played all kinds of piano. Then later I heard him play McCoy tying a solo on Lonnie's Lament. I don't know, he had to be 15 years old or something. And he's done so much on his instrument. At this point, he's such a fantastic musician and a great teacher and unbelievable scholar about the music and everything. Mr. Peter Martin is here. Pete, jump on in here and tell us a little something.
Oh, thank you so much, Wynton, and my condolences to you and the whole family and everybody who's here. I mean, you know, Ellis, Mr. Marsalis, he was, you know, he had several names, and he, I almost feel selfish to say, you know, he was all of our fathers, but he was your father and your brothers. But I mean, from the first time I met him, it was, you know, a musical father, a piano father, a teacher, old cool dude. I mean, he was like an old cool dude when he wasn't even that old. Now I'm thinking back to it, he was like my age now, but he was already an old cool dude, you know. And Wynton, I remember when I met you, in St. Louis, and you know, you played with the symphony, and my dad was playing, and Jeremy's dad, and my dad's like, yeah, this young trumpet player, man, this dude is a great classical player, and he claims he can play jazz too. I hadn't heard that, but he can definitely play Haydn trumpet concerto. And you know, you told my dad and Roger, you're like, you know, I guess they were telling you about via Jeremy. He's like, man, bring him down to the, you know, we came and met you, and we were like, it was such a cool thing to meet you. And looking back, I was telling this story recently, and I realized after the time passed, I was like Wynton was sort of like the original internet, like before the internet. Like Wynton's traveling around in the 80s, meeting, you know, like Clarence. Remember when we met Clarence Penn's here? And he's like, yeah, I know Wynton. I'm like, I know Wynton, you know. And like Wynton was there. But then as I got to know Wynton, and one of the first things you told me, Wynton's like, you need to meet my father. And you gave me his number in New Orleans. I remember like this, when you came back with your, you know, with Charnett and Jeff Watson, your jazz group. And I was like, oh, I got a phone number. I'm gonna call this like Wynton seems pretty cool. Let me call his dad. He's plays piano, you know. And you know, then I found out that your dad was actually the original like connector of all this. And now, you know, I see J-Bat and Joey Alexander and Terence, like, and all these folks that I've been like, you know, just so honored and proud to be associated with, you know, the different generations, the connections, New Orleans, New York, and all this. And your dad was always kind of like, you know, the connector of that. But he was also, you know, I always come back to those moments over the years that I saw. I think the first time I saw him was 1986 at Snug Harbor. First time I saw Mr. Marsalis, Ellis, E, you know, father, all these perform there. And it was such a mesmerizing and soothing and soulful and grooving. It was like this style that I always, you know, thought that I might want to be associated with, but never knew what it was. It was like jazz, but it was New Orleans, but it was groove, and it was like Bill Evans and McCoy Tyner, and I mean, it was all these things. It took me years later to realize, like, and I'm gonna geek out, I'm gonna nerd out a little on the piano stuff. Forgive me, but I mean, you know, I just want to speak a little because I mean, we have so many great angles, and the prism of Mr. Marsalis is so beautiful, and that's why his legacy is going to live on. But just from a pianistic standpoint, you know, the understated elegance, like the precision with his touch and his time, the things that, you know, people take for granted, and those, you know, all the people that heard him play at Snug Harbor and around the world and at Dizzy's and at Lincoln Center, you know, that he made look so easy. I'm like, I mean, that shit is not easy. I mean, piano players, we can say amen to that, because that is like the top level. And, you know, I still haven't totally figured it out. I'm just starting to scratch the surface. But at that time, I remember hearing him play and saying like, wow, that is something that he's tapped into. And I think what he's given us pianists, and then, you know, it's funny, Terence, you saying about you come up and him say, oh, I got my pianist, you know, he was the consummate pianist. I mean, he was the consummate educator, obviously the consummate father to his sons, and the consummate husband. I mean, I again, I could go on with stories, but we all got them. I remember one time, I'll just say this one time, I think it was 91. I was playing with you, Wynton, with Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, and we were in, I think it was in somewhere in Spain, and your dad was there playing at the festival. And also, and we were somehow, I mean, it was one of these crazy Ellis Marsalis stories, like, we're hanging at like 1 a.m. on the streets, you know, it's Spain, so they're just having dinner and drinks. And I'm hanging with Mr. Marsalis. Like, I mean, I've known him for a long time, but I'm still not like, I'm still, you know, and he's still my father, you know, father figure. And we're hanging, going from bar to bar. It's like the first time I really drank with him. I'm like, man, he can, not only can he play piano and teach and all this, build programs, he can drink too a little bit, you know. And we're going from bar to bar, and at a certain point, you know, I mean, I'm like, I don't know, 28, 29, 30 years old, and I'm like, man, this dude is hanging, you know. He kept kind of looking at me like, when are you going to drop off, you know? But I just remember, like, you know, the love that I had for him, and that continues to this day. And, you know, Wynton, I thank you, because you opened that up. You were always so like, you got to meet my father. It was never like, no, this is it was like, it was one love. It was the New Orleans family. And I mean, J-Bat, I remember when you first came by the house, that it was like that. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the beginning of the continuation, all this. And Antoine and Terence, like, but really Ellis was the prism with which, before we realized that we all kind of existed and came together. And the legacy is deep, wide, and grand, and I'm honored to be just a teeny part of it. So thank you.
Man, thank you. And you know, I just want to say to Cass how much he loved everybody. Like, he loved Terence. What T said was right. Man, you heard this You heard this opera T, right? You heard this film score he did, man, T, man, T. Like he could go on and on about each cat. Like he had a thing where it wasn't so much, I didn't feel about, my father was not a kind of touchy-feely, emotional person that put a lot of, you have to be this way or that way. He wasn't like a big family, Marsalis and all that kind of clannish pride of, that wasn't his thing. So how he would talk about Peter, if he heard you, something you did or you wrote, or about Terence or about J Bat, he would have a lot to say about it. Now he would call me, oh, you know, when he started talking, you couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
Man, he came back from your opera. He came back from a film you wrote. So, oh man, he loved the music. He must have talked to me for 40 minutes straight about the whole film. He said, man, let me tell you another thing I noticed, man. The one cuter cat had the tuba going, and you know, the tuba was playing on so and so and so and so. Oh, he said, yeah, man, I love what this cat Peter, man, he wrote the surrender, so and so. So he had very specific things about each person that he liked and he wanted to talk about. Man, J Bat, he gonna get that stride playing together, man, because he know how to stay in time when he's playing. You know, so I love hearing you say that. And I'm gonna bring the next young gentleman in, because we know he has his milk and his cookies next to him. And he's such a fantastic ability on piano. He blows everybody's mind. His harmonic sophistication and his knowledge of the music goes so far beyond his years. I can't even tell you what my father thought about him, the depth of respect my father had for his playing and his understanding. He's joining us, Mr. Joey Alexander. What you talking about, Joey? Thank you.
Thank you, Wynton. Well, first of all, my condolences to you and family.
Thank you, man.
I'm gonna share a little story of first time my first encounter. Yeah, not meeting him, but so I was very little, probably 4 or 5 years old.
Well, how old are you now?
I'm 16. Yeah, listening to a recording of Harry Connick Jr. singing Stardust. And at that time, my dad was playing this track, and my dad never really told me who played the piano. I knew Harry played piano, but I asked my dad, who's playing the piano? At the time, even my daddy knew. And later on, I learned that it was Harry's teacher who was Mr. Ellis Marsalis. And when I found out about that, I was really wanting to meet him after, hearing, his playing. He plays so beautifully, playing behind Harry, and his voicings, his harmonic approach. It was something mesmerizing, and that stuck with me. That version of Ellis and Harry playing together. It was such an unforgettable moment. It's actually one of the first piano accompany a singer, and it was truly special for me to hear that, And later on, I got to meet the man himself. We were at a festival in Minneapolis, and actually Delphia was playing with his band. It was an orchestra. We were sharing the same stage, and I was so glad to meet Mr. Ellis. And he was quiet. He was just sitting down and enjoying his meal. But yeah, it was a festival. It was a lot of people standing. It was outdoor, so the energy was, it was a lot. And well, later on, I got to see Ellis again. Mr. Ellis, we did a headlining together at this museum in Arkansas, Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. And we spent the whole day. It was truly, it was a humbling experience. And we really talked the dressing room, and well, so actually there's a little story into this. So we were doing a Q&A, and after we finished the Q&A, I had some, love time with the questions, and I think he knew that I had a hard time dealing with the questions. And then when we were in the dressing room, there was, I think, was inspiring things was that he really wanted to help me out. He really cared about how I deal with questions. And actually, he told me sometimes you can get stupid questions. I don't think there's such thing as stupid questions. But I remember he told me, you have to know how to deal with it, and you just have to, you gotta joke around sometimes. You gotta be funny, because he was such a funny guy. I can see, those qualities also in Wynton. I can see them.
Yep.
Just, he told stories about his beginnings. I think he started playing clarinet and play alto saxophone, and then he moved to piano. I think at age 15, if I'm right. So he had some great stories to tell. And for me, I'm not that great at storytelling, and I think he knew that.
You getting better, man. Don't worry about that.
No, it's true, man.
You're getting better. By the time you're 20, you're gonna be great at it.
It really helped me out. It's not about how the way I said it, is how I get comfortable with questions that maybe I might feel offended by, or some questions that I don't want to answer, but I have to kind of stay cool about it. Don't feel like like you're being confronted. That's what he told me. Just feel like it's a conversation. It's something that you have to enjoy it, and that's what I learned. And when we, after the Q&A, we did the performance. I played before him, and it was a great moment. And after I played, it was Mr. Ellis Marsalis' turn to play, and he was with this wooden cane. It was a pretty hip cane, I think. He might have that comment about it. He was like, "Oh." And well, because the stage it was pretty high. I mean, it was a long walk because he had to go to a few steps, and I think he had somebody helping him, walking to the stage. But it's truly, the strong impression that I get from Mr. Ellis is that the whole day we spent time together, he just wanted to pray. He didn't feel any tiredness. He was there to pray, and everything about him is something that it stuck with me. And one of his performances, I was hearing a song that he did where I heard B. Evans played it. It's called Emily.
Right. Yeah, he loved that song.
Oh, well, I love it too. So when I heard that, wow, he played so beautifully. I mean, it was something that that I won't forget.
He loved that. He loved that record with Bill Evans and Tony Bennett.
Wow, I mean, I love that record too.
Yeah, he loved that record.
Yeah, yeah, man. He was always very sharp, and he always asking me in high school. Even though I'm homeschooling, but he wants to know what I'm doing. What books you reading,
See, you were lucky when you got him. Because you know, when you were young, he was nice to you. Now me and Terence, Hey, T, you remember when we were growing up, when you play something he didn't like what you played, he would just ask you a question. He'd say, son, what are you playing?
What are you doing?
Right, Terence, tell him.
You know what's funny about you saying that? I'll never forget, I was in the practice room, and I finally learned what a minor with a major 7 chord was, and I was playing C minor, major 7 back to B flat minor, major. I kept going back and forth, and I thought it was such a hip sound, man. And Ellis heard me, and he goes, "Why are you playing Chelsea Bridge?" I thought I created something on my own. You know what I mean? He just came in there and broke it down. But he was always that way. I mean, you know, one of the things I was telling somebody the other day, I said, one of the things that somebody asked me, what's the main lesson you took away from Ellis? I said, know what you're doing, please. Please know what you're doing. If you didn't know what you were doing, he'd call you out. Hey, man, what is that? What was that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he always wants you to take your joy. Another thing he would do, so in the 70s, we learned how to circular breathe. Terrence, remember every time we played a solo, man, every solo we'd be circular. We just play like some scales, and all the people just start clapping. And so I remember I was on my dad's bandstand, man, I was just playing and circular breathing. I was just playing a scale, and everybody just erupted in the audience. Oh! Next solo, I just started circular breathing and holding it. No, everybody was erupting. The next song, the circular breathing. Then my daddy called me over to the piano. He said, come here, man. I walked over there. I said, yeah, I was just smiling like, man, I'm showing you up. He said, hey, bro, the circus is down the street. so you know, he could bite you. He wasn't just playing with you.
Oh,
so we got our brother Clarence Penn is up in here too. We got to get out and get some drums up in there. And drums and piano. My father always loved drummers. James Black, Ed Blackwell first was his man who played with Ornette Coleman. They played together in the 50s, and then later James Black, genius of New Orleans music and composition, not well known by people, but he was like him and my father all through the 60s and early 70s. They played together. So this is a gentleman, unbelievable drummer that my daddy loved with a great deal of intensity, Mr. Clarence Penn.
Yeah. What's up, guys? To the family. Yeah, Ellis talked incessantly about Ed Blackwell. Actually, he brought him down to VCU to do a clinic, and he talked about James Black. Because I was telling him one time, I was like, man, drummers don't really write. He was like, man, you don't know James Black. So, you know, little boy, man, I mean, like, he just talked about this cat, like, all the time. But, I mean, I want to say that when I met Ellis, it was in '87, and I had just saw Wynton, and you said, I was at another school, and I didn't like that school. And he was just like, man, you need to go study with my father. And I was like, where's your father? He was like, he just went to Richmond. You need to go down there. I was like, where? Richmond. Richmond wasn't even on my periphery at all. It's funny, like a couple of months later, Ellis came to Detroit to play, and he was playing with Branford. Lewis Nash and Delbert Felix. That's right. I went to the concert, and I was like, man, Wynton told me come study with you. He was like, great. Give me your address, give me your number. Wrote it down. He had me, you know, he had the school send the information. I went down and auditioned, got in, didn't have a place to stay. Ellis said, man, well, you know, Victor Goins, he's down here. So he just told Victor, he said, let Clarence stay with you. So, I was with Victor for about 3 months. I ain't have a practice room. Ellis was like, well, you could use my practice room, you know. So I shared it in his practice room. And I said this to my wife the other day, you know, after practicing, like, you know, every day, Ellis said, you know, I got a gig. You want to do this gig? And I was like, of course I want to do the gig. And we're flying to, I don't know, North Carolina, somewhere like that. And really, man, I'm thinking that I made it. I checked out Wynton. This cat was like, it was just like, just the status of jazz. And I was like, okay, this is where I'm headed. I'm on the plane. Ellis pulled out this big, thick book of 360 Bach chorales and was like, get busy. I was just like, what are you talking about? I thought I was just gonna be chilling. He was just like, man, you think this is a game out here? This is serious. So I started analyzing. I mean, like, so being on the road, I thought was gonna be fun, man. Every every gig we had, I had homework. So, you know, but I want to touch also. Wynton talked about Ellis and them cars. So Ellis sold me my first car.
Oh man, sorry.
Oh,
He didn't do that to you.
And I'm gonna tell
He
you,
charged you $200.
$500. Check it out. And your mama Dolores said, Ellis, don't sell that boy that car. I started the car. It started smoking. That's gonna go away when the car warm up. 2 years later, the car was still smoking. Man, so, you know, and so I mean, like I think I had a special relationship with him because I was down in Richmond. And he had just went down to Richmond, so he didn't really know a lot of people. I ain't know nobody, so I was over at his house every day. Me and Victor, I was there. He, you know, your mother was cooking dinner, and he was telling stories, teaching me how to play, tell me a bedtime story on piano, or you know, blue and green, like you know, stuff on piano. And so, you know, at that point, I kind of felt like this was my dad. I was like, he's all mine, right? It wasn't until I moved to New York in 91 that I found out like this cat knew all the kids, everybody. And I was like kind of, I was like, Peter, man, you don't know Ellis. I know Ellis. Like, you know, I had to just realize that this guy was just, he was like that with everybody, man. Just the wealth of information. I called Ellis 2 months ago because I went back, I'm in school getting my master's. And so I wanted to tell him, you know, like a dad, I wanted to tell him and make him proud. Man, I thought I was going to talk to him for about 20 minutes. I kid you not. 2 hours later, my wife, he's still on the phone. I'm like, man, he's just going. He's telling me I need to go. He's, man, it kept going. It was just like, you know, he was like Yoda. He just like always had something to say, always the right thing too. And if you're messing up on stage, he'll say something. You have to look at it, you be like, okay, so maybe that wasn't as good as I thought, you know? So man, I miss that cat, man. He was like a father for me, and I know for a lot of people. So you know, I'm just really honored to be amongst the whole family and amongst the people that he touched.
Hey, Wynton,
Man,
remember those
yeah,
keys
go
he
ahead,
used to have? Remember those keys he used to have? You would always hear it when he was teaching. You would always hear him coming down the hall because he had like 3 or 4 keys in his pocket. So I remember we were sitting out front of Oakland one night, me, Tony, and some other people to school with, and we knew every night, but every day, catch there after school, and that'd be like a 2 or 3 hour conversation, just talking about all kind of. It would run the gamut, bro. It wasn't about music; it was about life and all kind of stuff. So I remember one day, man, we heard those keys, and everybody said, "Oh shit, Ellis coming!" Yeah, we broke out running down the block, bro. We got to the other corner, man. We looked back; it was the janitor. I remember that Kobe right in too, man.
Oh man.
Oh, bro.
Bro, look, he could talk. What he's saying, I know when I was real little, when I was like 7, 8, 9, I was always hanging with him and James, and you know. So my mom always thought they were, man. I'd be getting home at 1, 2. She'd be like, "What y'all running out up and down the street with a child?" I said, "If you really know that they stood out on the corner and talked from 12 to 2 o'clock in the morning about something, I don't have no idea what they talking about, and they just making me stand there and endure this." They could go, man. They could go.
Oh man, all of those guys were like that. The whole crew of guys were like that, man.
They could go, and you know, they cats had hard times. Like cats in my father's band, 2 of them died of heroin overdoses. Yeah. And so they were like a family. But my mama had grabbed him, and she put so much of that power on him, he was afraid to get that high, you know. Yeah. And I mean, she kept him together, because without her, he'd have had a hard time even surviving.
But you know, man, I got to tell you this, bro. I have to say this, man. One of the things that was beautiful about growing up with Ellis and Mom, they dispelled the myth about making a choice between family and the music. They dispelled that myth. You know, look, bro, when I came over to, you know, your mom treated me like I was y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and both are good and bad. She didn't hold her tongue. She let that thing go. What was on her mind?
Yeah, she didn't do that.
No, and at the same time, man, we could never say that when Ellis was at a gig that he wasn't carrying himself with dignity and honor, man.
Right.
24/7. And I carry that with me because, you know, the way I live my life, I figure I'm trying to pay homage to those guys that came back and gave us everything that we use now to develop careers, man. And that's one of the things that I've always wanted to tell him thank you for, that I never knew how to say thank you about, is showing me how to be a man, showing me how to be a family man as well as an artist at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, him and my mama had their thing. You know, they didn't live in Camelot.
Right.
I mean, they stayed together and dealt with their business, even though they went through a lot of changes. But I was thinking, I don't remember if it was Peter. Somebody was saying my dad would fall asleep when he was playing. So the funny thing he would do is my mom would be in the audience a lot of times, and she'd be saying, "Child, I'm gonna sit here and see your daddy go to sleep." So when he would fall asleep, he always knew where he was as long as he was sleeping. So she started calling his name out in the audience, Ellis. And she'd get louder and louder. You know, people looking at her. Then he'd wake up, and when he woke up, then he would get lost. So when he woke up, he didn't know where he was. As long as he was asleep, he could follow the form. And then he look at my mom and put his fingers to his lips like she was disturbing his concentration. And she said, "Child."
Oh, man.
So I got my our final guest, I think, is in here, and he was always around my daddy and my mama. Fantastic trumpet player, scholar. We actually live 2 blocks from each other. We can't leave our apartments, and we're gonna see each other more than we do now. Mr. Antoine Dry, what you talking about, Twine?
Hey, what's up, brother? Yeah, so, you know, like everybody else, man, it's so many stories I could tell. I studied with Mr. Marsalis and Victor Goins, Harold Batiste, Charles Blanc at the University of New Orleans, go Privateers, class of 95. And, you know, I mean, I was telling the story earlier before we started about when I met him when I was 15. He was the first Marsalis that I met when I was 15. And it was in North Carolina. I was studying classical music at North Carolina School of the Arts. And he came there, and Clarence Penn was on drums. It was Jeff Clapp and me, and the name of the club was the Orchestra's Pit. And I think James Genius was on bass. And Marsalis was a little quiet because he had some kind of surgery on his mouth. But fast forward, because I want to just make this quick. This might not make sense, but I'm just telling some story. So fast forward, I ended up going to school, University of New Orleans, where Mr. Marsalis taught. And, you know, he taught in a very unique way. Like, he would be like, I'd come to class, at the end of class, he'd be like, go down to Preservation Hall and just sit there until they let you sit in. Go to Sheraton. Go tell George French I sent you to the Sheraton. You know, he would just tell us how to get involved with the music in a very uninstitutional sort of way, which was awesome. But I remember one time being at school in the cafeteria, and I saw him there, and he just looked at me and he said, "Oh, you got time to eat, huh?"
Right.
And I never figured out, you know, if he was telling the truth or not. I mean, if he was so serious or not, you know. So anyway, for the final, I just want to say something really quickly. This is going to be the last thing that I'm going to say, if you will allow me. Let me just find this really quick, because on Wednesday when Mr. Marsalis passed, with my friends I always called him E, but you know, to him I always addressed him as Mr. Marsalis. Had highest level of respect for him and Mrs. Marsalis. I love them both very dearly. But Wynton Jr. called me and told me, he called me like at 8:12 or something like that. And I wrote to him and Simeon. I said, "So sorry for your loss. E was very special to so many of us with the desire to play this music. Little did we know, E teaches through living. He helped many of us transition from being young dreamers to the strong, resilient adults he knew we'd need to be for a life in this music and beyond."
Yeah, man.
And then I read something later where I didn't really feel like I said it eloquently enough or or got my point across. But I read something by Arturo Alfaro, and he was talking about in an article about the passing of Pizzarelli and Mr. Marsalis. And he wrote in one little section, he wrote, they were such nice people too. They were examples to me of humanity and gentleness and generosity. I feel like we lost more than musicians and icons. We lost a high bar for how one should behave as a human being.
There you go. Yeah, you're right.
So thank you. And Wynton sent me, like everybody else, I was studying classical music at North Carolina School of the Arts. He sent me down to New Orleans, and I met Peter Martin, was one of the first people I met. Jeff Clapp and I went to Arlette House, and I saw you there. It was amazing time. Anyway, thank you for letting me say that. I could go on and on. Just say hi to Ben, Wolfe, and whoever else I can see. Terrence, love you, Terrence.
Oh, what's up, Wolfe?
Love you, bro.
All right.
I didn't know Wolfe was up in here. So, we finished, but we got Jay back. We got Peter Martin. We got Terence Blanchard, Clarence Penn, Joey Alexander. If he's still up, he might have went to bed. Antoine Dry. Whoever wants to, if you have questions you want to get in, doesn't have to be for me. It can be for any of us. It's like they were saying about with my father. We all and it's good that y'all can see kind of just the natural way we are with each other, because a lot of times it doesn't come across just in articles, or we all doing different things. But when we come together, we have a certain type of just of basic oneness. This comes from our training. We talk about my father tonight, but we could be talking about Terence's parents. We could be talking about, it doesn't matter who we talking about. It's all one kind of circle.
Well, one of the things that I think people should really understand is the way that I came into contact with you, that my aunt, my mom's sister, went to college with Ellis and Roger. They all get my aunt to play jazz. She was a classically trained pianist. So this is like family, man. This is going back generations. Right. And when I studied with Roger, I'll never forget, man. I was playing piano with him, and he went out of town. So he says, "Listen, I'm gonna send you uptown to take a lesson with Ellis." Got all, man. So I got up to the house, and Ellis sat me at the piano, and and he asked me a tune, and when I really sit down and voice it the correct way, most teachers would sit down and tell you something, but Ellis said, "No, figure it." He sat there, bro, for 30 minutes while he watched me figure out how to voice all of the chords on this tune.
Right.
Making sure you did the work. Wanted to see your process. Not just leave it up to you, but to make sure you understand what it is you need to get better.
Yes, indeed, T. What you talking about, Wolfe? Can y'all is Wolfe still in there? Adam, can you get Wolfe in here?
Yeah, bringing him in right now. Here he is.
Am I unmuted now? Yeah, I guess so.
Now.
I want to see that big. All right, man. You must love. I love that family. I love you guys, man. You know that, man. That was very sad news when I heard this, and E for me was someone who I would say to myself, would E think I'm bullshitting right now? I need to work a little harder. And I would the bar I would think about for some reason. I spent a few times with him in conversation, several, I guess, and I played with him a few times, but I remember all the situations, but I just remember him in them. I don't remember the other people around. I remember just him. When we played Jazz Lincoln Center, I don't remember it might have been with Tony Bennett. I think Herlin was playing drums. I don't remember. But I do remember the way he was on the bandstand was very inviting. That thing with the bass and the piano, like what chains are we going to play? Because with the best musicians I played with, we didn't really discuss it too much. We discussed it musically. You listen, you hear, hopefully, and you play together. And it was almost like, without using words, the way he played, he was playing like, how about we do this right here?
Right.
How about we do this right here? It was so clear and so inviting and so easy. And I just remember the feeling of it was you know, it made you not think about what you're playing. It made you think about the music and made you go deeper inside the music. So it was like a lesson without it feeling like a lesson.
Right.
It was very special. And I remember you talked about him, he would talk a lot.
He could go.
It was a gig with Jeremy Davenport. And somewhere in maybe Calgary, one of those jazz festivals where the venue's in the hotel. So we were sitting in the bar, and he says, the problem about music today is there are no bands. I was just talking to Train about this recently. And then he went this long thing, and it made so much sense, but it was like really deep, how clear and concise. I didn't say one word. But it was, I remember the feeling of it was very special and was very giving. He's just like on the bandstand. It's very giving, selfless. He never seemed like he wanted to demonstrate, you know, I know this, you don't, or, you know, I can do this. It was never like that. It was always just like giving information for real, though not, you know, he would give it hard sometimes, but it was good. I mean, it was like my father was like that, so it was very comfortable. I used to get in a lot of trouble when I was a kid for playing extra notes on last chords or playing out of tune. And I would get in trouble for that. So he was the way it was very comfortable for me.
Right.
And in fact, your whole family always made me feel very supported and very welcomed, and that was always very inspiring. So I mean, you know that, man. You know,
yeah, man. Come on.
So,
you know, you my man. The first tour we went on with Wolfe, we was playing in all Afro-American churches. Reginald Ville was playing bass before him, grew up in a church tradition. I had a piece he had to sing on it. He said, man, I can't sing this. I said, yeah, you can sing it, man. So he started singing it. All the people in the church started erupting. Yeah, we love our white boy on the bass. In the sweetest birds of life.
Yeah.
That's some good ass food that tour too.
We talking about the church, man. Like,
hey, I gotta.
Gospel music. That was your word.
I want to say something about that because I remember something really cool. I remember y'all came and y'all did that in New Orleans, and then I remember y'all were going to Texas after that, and I remember getting on the bus. And I remember Wynton was eating like some Ritz crackers with tuna fish and putting like a drop of soy sauce on it. I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget the bus took off, man, and I ended up going to Texas with you. I'll never forget that.
Oh,
but I want to say one more quick thing about E because he taught me something. He used to say something and it kind of came to me later on. But I remember one time I got called to do a gig with this pop group called the Brand New Heavy. And my parents were like really into me getting my education. So when they called, I said no. And the next day I called, I was in school. I was at the PAC, Performance Arts Center. And I told Mr. Marsalis back, and he immediately said to me, because it was very good paying. I told him everything, the money and everything. And he said his first response to me was, can you call him back? He was like, a gig. And I was like, man, my mom is going to kill me. And he was like, I'll talk to her. And I'll never forget that. He talked to my mom, and I went on that tour, and I ended up hating it. Remember Clarence? I ended up hating that tour. I saw Clarence at the Iridium Hotel, or at when the Iridium used to be in the Empire. And I was like, man, I hate this. I really wanted to play jazz, but I just remember that story, man. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's good. Okay, we gonna open it up, you know. But that's how he was. Like he wasn't prejudiced against stuff.
No.
You got to find out about stuff. Go do it.
Yeah.
So if we got any people?
Yes.
Yeah, let's turn it over to some questions here. Real quick, for those of you who joined us a little bit late, if you want to ask a question, just select the raise hand function at the bottom of your participants tab. We've got a lot of questions and not a ton of time, but we'll see how many we can get through. Our first question is coming from Sabine Katanas. All right, Sabine, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, Wynton. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Hey, condolences. I never got the privilege to know your father, but I'm thankful for him because he gave us you. So you've absolutely had a major influence on my life and the way I think about the world. So it's just a privilege just to be sitting here talking to you. My question was, you recently said in a radio interview that excellence is a form of protest. Can you explain that? Can you elaborate on that in light of Mr. Marsalis Sr., in light of his life? Because whatever he was protesting it, he was never doing it with anger. And you know, he was always well composed, very professional. So can you please talk about that statement that excellence is a form of protest in through the lens of Mr. Marsalis's life? And thank you.
Well, you know, my father grew up in segregation. So he was 26 before he could ride on the front of a bus. And it doesn't mean that he started riding on the bus when he first had the opportunity, because he used to always say, man, if you get somebody used to riding in the back of the bus, if you get rid of the back, they'll build one to get in it. And, you know, my father was really Eastern kind of in his thinking, but he grew up, he dealt with a lot of prejudice and ignorance growing up when he did. And even after the end of segregation, you know, stuff is, it ain't no way about it. I mean, I was always much more hot-headed than him. So he would always tell me, man, why don't you be quiet, man? No, you need to, he was a certain type of person, Eastern, more Eastern-like. And he had a sense of peace and calm, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't acute about what was going on, and he was not philosophical. Like, he knew it, and he had a very clear understanding of stuff. And by that, I mean kind of what everybody was saying, you know, what everybody, J-Bat, Terence, Peter, Joey, you know, Clarence talking about, hey man, learn these 365, analyze these chorales. Because if you want to say you believe something, be adroit, be adept, have information, know what something is about. And he believed in participating in the democratic process. And he was not one side or the other. He was the side that he felt was his way. And I saw my father deal with a lot of ignorance in a philosophical way in barbershops and in the neighborhoods we grew up in. You know, he was always struggling just to make ends meet, playing jazz. It was a struggle, especially when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. But he always had his point of view in his mind. And he always, no matter what, if he had the most unpopular view in the barbershop, he didn't care. He was not going to go with people. He didn't. And he was also the least prejudiced person I knew philosophically.
Right.
And, you know, this was civil rights movement. And right after that, the kind of retreat from civil rights, which was also just as hard on my father. The late 70s and to the mid 80s was rough on his generation. Because in the 60s, they thought there would be kind of a change. He always used to say he was shocked because he didn't think Lyndon Johnson was going to sign all of that legislation, because Lyndon Johnson was from Texas. And so for him, yeah, excellence. I think it's what we all were saying. Huh? What you saying, Bat?
All right, he's coming in. Just one sec. All right, go ahead, John.
When you exist and you disprove stereotypes or disprove things that are put against your character and your essence just by merely existing, it's a form of protest without having to say anything. The actions speak louder than words. You know, the idea of being somebody who's erudite and comes from a lineage that they represent and can demonstrate on their instrument, and they can speak about it, and they have a depth of humanity, and they understand how to relate to different people from all walks of life without judgment. All of these things, I think, are a form of protest to the kind of small-minded boxes that sometimes society wants to put groups of people in, all of the isms. And,
that's Batiste.
You know, so, oh yeah, that's
Alvin. That's Alvin Bat, right?
That's Alvin Batiste.
Right.
Yeah. You know, yeah. He was like that too, and he could talk too.
Right. That could get you for a good hour and a half. Ooh.
Yes.
That's an hour and a half after he tell you, yeah, finally, my daddy's was in a nutshell. You know how he tell you in a nutshell, you be like, No, not in a nutshell.
But your dad had two things. He would grab nose or he would grab his ear. Like this.
Right.
See what you cats don't understand.
Oh.
Wynton, so thank you so much for that answer. In closing, can I just take 5 seconds to read something beautiful I read about your dad this week?
Sure.
The law professor David Wilkins from Harvard School said, "We can all marvel at the sheer audacity of a man who believed he could teach his black boys to be excellent in a world that denied him that very possibility, and then watch them go on to redefine what excellence means for all time." So may he rest in peace, and we're very thankful that he graced us with his presence and with his ethic throughout his life.
Yeah, that's deep for David to say that. And the one thing I want to say about my dad is he was conscious from a racial standpoint. You couldn't come from where he came from, but he was not a race guy. Like, he loved everybody. When I left home to go to college, he gave me a book, Autobiography of a Yogi, by Paramahansa Yogananda. So I looked at the book now, and I thought to myself, now I was raised by this man. I hung with him. I went everywhere with him. He never said one word about any yogis. Nothing, and absolutely nothing about any of this. And this is the book he's given me when I'm in some 400-page book with all these Indian names that I can't even remember a name. And he put it in my hand, and because I was kind of contentious when I walked out the door, he said, "Read this book, man, and try to understand what this man is telling you about self-realization, and you're going to understand your place in the world." So there's a guy from Kenner, we live in Kenner, he's from New Orleans, and that's what he's telling me. So, his thing about the liberation of yourself was not a racial liberation, it was a human liberation. And that's why even in the last conversation I had with him, he said, man, everybody's losing people. The last lucid conversation, people losing people all over the world. Your loss is not any more significant than anybody's. So, I didn't know he was talking about himself. Maybe he knew it, I didn't know it. But that's what I think all of us on the phone, it doesn't matter whether it's me or Clarence or Joy or Ben or Bat or T or Peter. We all and that's a part of his teaching in his philosophy. Or Twine, that was where he was coming from.
All right, thank you. And when you're in Detroit next time, it'd be nice to connect.
I would love that if Clarence let me come back.
Yeah.
All right, Sabine, thanks so much for your question. All right, we've only got time for probably one or two more, but let's see if we can squeeze a couple more in. Next question is coming from Robert Crabluck. Robert, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Marsalis. My condolences on your father's passing. I know you said you didn't get a chance to cry, but I hope you find your time and your way to grieve. And that's my hope for you and your family. So my condolences. I was talking to the great Scotty Barnhart the other day, and good old Scotty. And he was mentioning the fact that there's no generational gap in jazz and how cool that is for the art form, that there's no generational gap. And Mr. Blanchard, you brought this point up tonight, pay it forward, right? And whether you're young or old, you can all hang together. We heard stories of that with your father tonight. And so my question is, generations of jazz musicians have brought with them this sense of influencing, teaching, hanging with younger musicians. A large part of this was fostered through tangible interaction at clubs, on bandstands, and through traveling. If we fast forward that now to the present, do you feel that this fostering of no generational gap in jazz can be represented in an online sense, whereby that tangible quality might be lacking?
Well, you got it tonight. If you look at J Bat is much younger than me. Peter is younger. Me and Terence are basically the same age. Ben Wolfe too. I know he's trying to creep and pretend like he's younger, but he's not. Clarence is definitely younger, and Twine is younger. Now, how many years? I couldn't tell you. 10, 15 for some, 30 for some. And Joey, we still smell Similac on him. But when we look at each other's bands, I see Terence's band, or Ben, the students he teaches. When I see J Bat, his whole band, I can remember people in J Bat's band now on the Colbert Show. I remember when my daddy called me when Joe Saylor was in high school and said, "Man, I just heard some cats who could play in Pennsylvania." So we all play with each other. We see each other. What you think about that, y'all?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, Wynton,
I think it's unlike anything you've ever seen. You think professional sports, man. Those they enter into sports, you know, young this or whatever, and then their careers are kind of over within a short period of time. With us being, you know, artists, we can enter into this business, man, and still have relationships with great musicians who still foster, you know, support and compassion and encouragement. We can get all of that from them. You know, whenever I saw Ellis, man, you know, I saw him not too long ago. He was playing at Snug Harbor, and he was on his break, and I just watched. Well, I didn't. He was having dinner. I just sat down with him, and the fact that this man was still excited about playing music was a lesson, was encouragement to me, you know. And you looked at who was on bandstand with him. He didn't have a bunch of guys up there his age. The age range expanded this incredible range of generations who had been with him, who had just started to play with him. And that's the beautiful thing about what it is that it's a communal thing, man. You know, there's nothing like it. You can't find anything like it in life, you know, especially in the arts. And with a guy like Ellis, we're all, that you've heard the testimonies tonight, we're all very blessed to have encountered him. And one of the things that I think the important thing for us to take away is when you look at all these different generations that have encountered Ellis, they all have been the same experience. This is a humble person. This is a person who loved his craft and loved music and loved people and got excited about what we were all doing. And it's one of the things that we need to pay forward. You know what I mean? This world of the art world is harder, man. So Ellis is the example of how we come together and support each other, how we need to constantly teach each other and move this thing forward out of respect for one another.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if I see Peter, what Terence is saying, if I see Peter, if I see J Bat, and we're all connected. Me and Ben Wolfe, how many bandstands we on for years? Okay, we playing. It's a natural kind of familial thing, really. If I see Bat, he's the age of my oldest son. So, but immediately if he comes in my house or I see him anywhere we are, it's a certain just natural love. And that's true with the music. And just we go around the world, we see people who play our music. Man, I was in Brussels just not too long ago. A young kid came up, 16 years old. I don't remember his name. He was playing so much guitar. And it took me right back to when I first heard Peter play, when he was 15, because you don't hear the musicians like that. And I still see that. I see it in Bat's band, in Dia, playing the bass. I remember Rodney Whitaker telling me about her. And I remember Rodney, when he was 14, Marcus Belgrade brought him to come see me play in Detroit. And, you know, it keeps going.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mr. Marsalis, and everybody for the answer. There's a lot of heavyweights in the room tonight, and I appreciate the fact that you allowed us to be part of this conversation. I'm shaking a little bit, you know, because of all the heavyweights, but I'm trying my best to get my thoughts out. So I appreciate your time very much on that. My condolences and much love to you.
Thank you very much for coming on. I'm glad my daddy didn't hear you call us heavyweights.
So Wynton, this is Chloe. We lost Adam, but I'm on the video team as well at Jazz Lincoln Center. We're waiting for Adam to come back, but I have a little brief shebang that I would like to do before we take our last question. Just wanted to let everyone know that we've got a great lineup of live events that we'll be hosting for free every day throughout the coming weeks, including more masterclasses and conversations with members of the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra. special guests, live performances, and more. So stay tuned. Check out our website, our social media, jazz.org. We will always be here for you. Thanks again to everyone for being part of the community. If it's within your means, please consider making a donation. Jazz Lincoln Center is a non-profit organization in New York City, and we're committed to entertaining, enriching, and expanding a global community for jazz. Contributions of any amount are extremely meaningful, and to our supporters and donors, we cannot thank you enough. So we're gonna go to the last question, Mr. Andre Carter. Andre, are you there?
Hey, Carter.
Dre. Yeah, Dre.
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't know y'all could hear what was happening.
What's up, Dre?
Andre.
Hey, man. I was checking it out for sure, man. E. I can have stories for days about E. That's, you know, I loved him so much. And I can start out with the first stories. I came from DC. Like, when I was in DC, I thought I could play, you know. From DC, I was like, man, you know, I told my teacher, I'm going to play, I'm going to learn the music. You know, I met Skain when he was in high school. He used to come to Duke Ellington and give his workshops and clinics, and he was always dressed to the T and clean and could play so greatly, man. I was like, man, you know, this is what I want. I want to deal with this. And Wynn was like, man, you need to go to New Orleans and study with my father. And I came to New Orleans and I auditioned for UNO, and I played, and I had to play confirmation, and I think Satin Doll, and E was like, you need to look at the music for Satin Doll.
Yeah.
When he said that, I knew. I was like, man, look, I got a lot of work to do. I thought I was just going home and I wasn't coming back. You know what I'm saying? Like, he said, you need to go listen. Then he said, you need to go listen to Nicholas Payton. I said, oh, okay. And if we talk about 1990, you know what I mean? This 1990. And I go hear Nick and Tip and I'm like, oh shit, okay, this I see what he's saying right now, you know what I mean? But anyway, I was accepted at UNO, and it was like the most beautiful time in my life. Ellis was just like, he was like a father to me, man, like another, I just can't, just all the knowledge that he had and all the teachings that he had, I was just so glad that I had the opportunity to go to New Orleans and study with him. But it was just beautiful. I mean, I heard you, Antoine, I heard you were saying about, you was talking about how you had that gig with the Brand New Abbeys. I had a similar story because I said I had a gig with Buck Rizatico, and I was like, man, look, I got a gig to go on the road to play with Buck. But I mean, I'm in school, and he said, look, school will always be here, but a gig will not.
We all know that now.
So, man, you know, I went and played that gig with Buck and traveled all over the world, man. And, you know, I had an amazing time at 21 years old or whatever, however old I was at the time, and traveled all over the world playing. And that's what I want to do. I want to go around the world playing my horn. And I had to thank E for that, man. I got so many stories. This is the last one. I don't want to hold everybody up, but this is the last one I have. Hold on, I got one more. One more. I had two more. This is the next one. We was in school.
Let it out, man.
And I told Wynton about this. We was in school, and we was in the hallway one time after class, and somebody, I remember, I think it might have been Jeremy. He was like, what do you think about, he asked Mr. Marsalis, he said, what do you think about everybody trying to be like Wynton, or everybody trying to play like Wynton and dress like Wynton, and everybody trying to just be like Wynton? And he was like, well, it's a lot of people out here trying to be like Snoop Doggy Dogg.
You remember that.
I'll never forget that, man. I'm like, hey, like really, man, you know? And this is the last one, and I'm gonna get off of here. Not too long ago, during the Grammys, Ellis was out here in LA, and I got a call from Wynton. I was like, you know, I didn't know, me and Wynton talk all the time. I think it might have been late or something. I was like, man, Skain calling me this late for? And said, man, look, what you doing now, man? He said, man, you know, I want you to drive my daddy down to New Orleans. I was like, what? And but I was like, sure, man, you know, that's my man. You know, if you need to get me to do it. And we took a ride down to New Orleans, and I helped drive him down to New Orleans. It was a 2-day trip, but it was too short. because it seemed like 2 hours. I mean, because it was so much knowledge that he had and so many stories that he had. And it just reminded me of being in UNO and being his student and just.
But let me say something,
it was
bro.
the greatest ride I've ever had.
Drye, I just want to interrupt you to say one thing. Okay, my father had driven out to the Grammys. I didn't want him to drive out there. This was just recently. He had a lot of health problems. He had just driven out there. And Deirdre is the lady, he was blessed to have this lady take care of him and my mama. My mom had dementia for 8 years and she passed away. But she drove out there and somebody was supposed to drive back with them and they couldn't do it. So I started thinking, who could take care of my daddy? Because my father has, you know, a lot of issues. It's not just driving. And it was going to be a struggle. So I remembered how Drye had taken care of his grandmother. Wow. And this is a man that's so selfless with so much depth of soul and feeling. I said, man, he was in the middle of what he was doing. I said, man, I need you to, and I didn't want to call him, but I told Deirdre, I just didn't want her to drive all the way from Los Angeles back to New Orleans with my father, because my father couldn't get around. He couldn't walk. He had to stop all the time. They'd stop at hotels. And Drye agreed to do it. He took them all the way back to New Orleans. And Deirdre said Drye was going to take her job because of how well she took care of her. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to say who you were and what you actually did. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Man, it was no problem at all, man. You know, I loved him, man. And, you know, it's whatever I could do for him, I was happy to do it. I mean, because I really loved him. I love you and your family, man. They took care of me when I was in New Orleans, man. I appreciate everything you all ever did for me, man. And it wasn't a problem at all. And like, it hurt for me, you know, to find out their news. But I know, you know, it is what it is in these times right now, man. And he lived a good life and he helped so many students and people along the way, man. We just really appreciate and love him and love you, man, your family for what y'all did for us, man. So, you know, it was no problem, man.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
For sure, man. Anytime.
You know, thank everybody for getting on. You know,
yeah.
And the love we all have that we expressing on the line is not fake.
I had that good ass gumbo when I was down there, man, for years. Your mama
man, no, you talk about that.
I did too.
Don't talk.
Yeah,
don't
right.
talk about that. Don't
you
talk
ain't
about
getting that. You ain't getting that, Nico.
Such a profound part of our lives, man.
Down, bro. Come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
What's up, Terrence?
What's happening, bro? Good to see you.
Hey, Terrence, I like that white hair, Terrence. It looks beautiful on you, man.
Yeah, man.
Been white for a long time. I just got tired of dealing with it.
It looks good, man. It looks good. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man, you can go on and on, man.
Yeah.
And look, and those two, I used to see those two all the time in New Orleans in class. I always used to see them on Frenchman Street.
Yeah.
Antoine
and Andre.
Antoine, yeah.
Antoine and Andre.
Yeah.
Hey, Terrence, I remember when you came to W crib though and gave us a lesson though, man. You be like, man, you gave us a lesson, man, told us to deal with the clock studies, man. So, man, that's what it's all about, the clock studies, man.
But look,
yeah.
That's how it was, man. With Emery Thompson, Johnny Fernandez, all of them players. Whenever
George Jensen, don't forget.
George Jensen, bro. Whenever we saw him in passing, bro, it was a trumpet lesson all the time.
That's right. Don't forget
I
Jensen.
appreciated that. Terrence was living two blocks down from us in the Garden District, man. Coming to the crib, man. Give us a lesson, man. Look, I appreciate that, man. For real, man. That's man. Such a legacy, man, just to be involved with all of y'all, man. Just, you know, me coming from DC and going to New Orleans, I'm so glad I came down there and just studied, man, and just met y'all, man. It was just such a blessing.
Yes,
that's why I
love all y'all, man.
That's why I'm saying it's important for this man's life to have more meaning, move forward, because they gave up careers, man, for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This Robinson, Jon Batiste, Kid Jordan, the list is endless, man. They were very talented musicians, bro, and all very loving people. They weren't people who would give us, you could approach any of them at any given time, bro. And it's one of the things I loved about Ellis, man, and I had with me today. There's no way in hell that I could ever turn away a student who wanted to learn something about music. If Ellis saw somebody who wanted to learn and all you had to do was ask, and that was it. He'd give you the world. So
Yeah.
we need to move that, keep moving that forward, bro, by being selfless and giving back to the community.
Sure. This is the last thing I got to say about E, man. E wanted everybody to be great.
Yep.
He wanted everybody to be great. You know what I mean? Even man, on that ride, he was like, man, what you doing now, man?
Yeah.
We was listening to some Louis Armstrong in the car. He was like, man, can you play in this style? He said, if you come to New Orleans, man, you can, you could do something, man. He just said, you wanted everybody to be great, man. And man, that's what you need.
I'm gonna say one thing. Wynton, when you talked about Paramahansa Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi, bro, that's very powerful, because I got that book after I left home, and I came back and I brought it to Roger Dickinson, who was Ellis' best friend. Those guys were like two peas in a pod. And when I showed it to Roger, Roger goes, oh yeah. It took me back and showed me where his book was and also where he would pray. So those were the type of guys that live their lives through example, not trying to beat you over the head with information. They just live their lives based on beliefs. And we started to find out the information as we became adults. And it started to really make sense in of what actually fueling this energy that we felt behind what it was that they were giving us. You know what I mean? So I read that book, man, and learned a lot from that book. And it just made so much sense to me that those guys were the way they were because of their own belief system.
Yep, that's right. You summarized it.
All right, guys, I think that's a really great note. We're running out of time here, but I want to give a big thanks to our special guests who joined us tonight.
Thank you.
Jon Batiste, Joey Alexander, Peter Martin, Terence Blanchard, Clarence Penn, Antoine Dry, Andre Carter, and anybody else who joined us asked questions.
Ben Wolfe.
And Ben Wolfe, sorry. I want to say thanks again to our supporters and donors. We're a nonprofit organization in New York City. If it's within your means, please consider making a donation. We're extraordinarily grateful for any support. And you can keep up to date with us on social media. Just search for Jazz at Lincoln Center on Facebook or follow us on Instagram, Twitter at jazz.org. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Any closing words, Wynton?
I think what Terence was saying would summarize it. There's nothing else to say. My daddy received a lot of love, and he died. He was very unfussy about everything. He was himself to the end. They'd be asking him, did he need more oxygen or something? Instead of bringing it up, and he was like, no, everything is fine. And I think in the end, he had a lot of underlying conditions too. So he had a very good life, and you hear an example of why. He loved everybody who spoke. He talked about so much and loved their music and their creativity. And we could have had many more of us to talk about him. And just thank y'all for tuning in. And I thank the Lord for having known him and for knowing such great people as who you heard speak tonight.
Love you, man.
Thank you, Wynton.
Yeah, you're right. Much love.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Wynton.
Good to see y'all. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great to see y'all.
Come on over, Wynton.
I might creep over there. What y'all eating, man? What you got to eat over there?
Oh, that's all we've been doing is cooking, man. hey, Momo y'all is delivering. Momo y'all got food up.
Hey, I might have to put my mask and my outfit on and go over there and get some of those ribs.
Come on over, man. Anytime.
Hey, bro, that's why we got a whole stack of gloves and masks.
Right?
Yeah. All right, y'all.
All right, y'all. Much love.